Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Pavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 6th November, Tuesday today. Dear friends, we have to go through many important articles. But before that, let me introduce all of you to our big Diwali sale. Flat 60% off on our pen drive and Android courses is available at present. This is going to last till 10th November. To find out more about it, do check out studyiq.com. In case if you have any questions or confusion regarding it, then you can feel free and give us a call on the numbers that you can see on your screen. Now we have two articles on RBI. The first one that we are going to go through is this one, Willful on Defaulters, and the second one is In Defense of Urjit Patel. Now on 2nd November 2018, CIC, that stands for Central Information Commission, wrote a letter directed towards RBI governor. It's basically a show cause notice asking this question to RBI governor or RBI that why maximum penalty should not be imposed on RBI governor for defiance of Supreme Court order. A couple of years ago, Supreme Court came out with this order that all those willful defaulters out there, their names should be disclosed in public, right? Their names should be out there in public so that other organizations or other banks can protect themselves from this sort of willful defaulters. So it was about, placing them in a hall of shame. That's what this exercise or this order is all about. And now the big question is, and this is something that we find in this CIC show cause notice, that CIC is a bit surprised that Apex Bank of our country is not following orders of Apex Court of our country. So this is a matter of concern because it will create a very bad culture, right? We don't want to see this thing that, top bodies and important organizations like RBI are not following orders of Supreme Court, and we don't want a state of anarchy in our country. Of course, our Supreme Court is strong, but the thing is, this thing is, this particular thing of this willful defaulter is a matter of concern for the whole economy. It's about bad loans, NPAs. If you don't know what NPA is, then let me briefly give you this example here. How it works is, say for example, you have this balance sheet, right? I'm sure you have heard about this thing called balance sheet. So in this BS, you have on one side you have assets, right, all your properties, and the other side you have your liabilities. So let's take example of a depositor depositing 100 rupees right, with a bank. So this money at present, it is under the domain of a particular bank, but this money, this 100 rupee, belongs to Mr. Y, right, who has deposited this money. So one day Mr. Y will claim his money and this bank will have to give back this 100 rupee to this Mr. Y. So on the book of RBI or on the book of a bank, right, it will be on this side, it will be in this column of liability. Then assets are all those fixed property and other things, and money. For a bank, money is cash or money is its asset because it gives out it trades in loan. The more loan that are given by a bank and the more interest that bank is earning out of those loans, the better it is for the bank, isn't it? So money, say for example, if this bank is holding or having a capital of rupees 500, and out of this 500 rupees, right, Mr. X took a loan of 100 rupee, and now Mr. X is not paying back this money to the bank. So it will be loss for a bank because an asset of 500 rupees, out of that 100 rupee is given to this person here, and he's not able to be paid back. Or there are two conditions: either for various different because of various different circumstances that person is not able to pay back that money to the bank, or the second thing could be this person could be a willful defaulter, right? Willfully he's not paying back this money. So at the end of the day, this 100 rupee, an asset of a bank, is not performing, right? It's not creating any sort of profit. In fact, it is creating troubles for the bank. So that's why it is called NPA, or these are bad loans. I hope things are clear to you now here. So Mr. Achar Yulu, who is a Central Information Commissioner, he has justifiably asked the finance minister as well that why you are not forcing banks, or what are the steps you have taken so far as a government? What are the things, how much money you have recovered? What about all those 50 crore plus willful defaulters? Have you issued criminal proceedings against them and things like that? So it's not just RBI, it's Government of India as well that is under this lens of Central Information Commission, and that's very important thing, because if we go through the figures, we find that March 2018, right, out of all those loans that were given, right, 11.6% are NPAs. They are non-performing assets. So this is a matter of concern for the whole economy. This is something that is not acceptable at all, and it is RBI's duty, to make sure that everything is running smooth as far as our finance or banks and a smooth flow of money is concerned. Now, RBI has been seeking, powers or authority over public sector banks. RBI has said this thing many times, that it is not having that much good grip over public sector banks because of limited. It has to stay within this boundary or limits because of rules and regulations. So that's a big problem for RBI, and government should certainly do something about it. Now, RBI, it's not that RBI has not done anything about it at all. RBI has initiated steps to set up a digital public credit registry that would include details of all borrowers, including willful defaulters. And now we have to wait and watch for 16th November, because 16th November is deadline for furnishing information sought about those owning 1,000 crore rupees or more. So CIC is waiting for RBI's response, and all of us are waiting for RBI's response, because it's very important for our economy. We'll throw some more light on it when we talk about this in defense of Urjit Patel. Now, this particular article is about government versus RBI. A couple of days ago, I explained you this thing about Section 7. Now, before moving ahead, dear friends, we have one more article about which we have talked about just a couple of days ago. So I will request all those new guys, if you are new to this discussion, then please do one thing: download PDFs of past couple of lectures and go through the topics, and based on that topic, if you find this topic of RBI or Section 7 either in news item or either in this editorial page, then go through that video and go through the discussion that we have done, because it's not possible for me to repeat things every day. I hope you understand, right? It will be very boring for regular students. So if you are new, then just catch up with things, right? It will require your extra energy and your extra willpower for time being. But once you are up to date with this thing, I'm not asking you to go through the videos of whole month. Just go through the videos of last week and go through this topic, Section 7, what it is all about. So we know that based on our previous discussion, we know that Section 7 has been there since 1935, and this is the first time in 83 years this thing has been used by a government. At present, we have this scenario of government versus RBI, which is not healthy for our country. There are three things that are creating this friction between this government and RBI. The first one is RBI's stringent restrictions on government-run banks. RBI is asking for some extra power. Government is not ready to give some extra power to RBI. The other thing is restrictions on government-run banks whose non-performing assets have grown so much. We have talked about this 11.6%, isn't it? It was back in March 2018. So we need to control this thing, and to control this thing, central government should have this stick in its hand. So government has to do something about this thing. The second one is RBI is asked by government to go a bit soft on power companies, on this DISCOMs. DISCOMs stands for this electricity distributing companies. So government wants RBI to give them some breathing room so that they can sort out their financial crisis, but RBI is not. RBI has been a bit strict on this power companies. So this is something that is creating problem between government and RBI. One more thing that I would like to add here is that at present, as far as finance ministry is concerned, we have Arun Jaitley. He is not at all an aggressive person, right? His personality is not aggressive. He's a person who will sort out things via talks and discussions and negotiation. And same thing goes for RBI Governor Urjit Patel. And even then, if we have these two dovish leaders, and then we find this sort of situation, then that's sending a very negative, you can say, signal in the market. Investors are a bit skeptical at present because of this rife going between government and RBI. And it's a very common thing, right? You find this sort of tensions going on between central government as well as this Reserve Bank or Federal Bank of any country, because see, at the end of the day, government is run by politicians. So politicians or political parties, they would like to create this, they would like to delight and satisfy industries and, you know, common man and other people. There are various groups that government would like to delight and satisfy. Now, RBI or Federal Bank, it has to stick with rule books. It has to stick with what is important, and it has to take impartial decisions. I'm not saying that government is taking impartial decisions, but you will find a touch of politics, right? A touch of brownie points, or a wish for brownie points. And here in RBI, we'll find a touch of more, you know, staying in the boundaries of rules and regulations. So naturally, there are going to be clashes, but things have not been that this bad, right? We can realize this thing from this thing as well itself, that after 83 years, if we are using Section 7 for the first time, then this indicates, or this is a very negative signal that is coming from this rife. Now, the third dispute is about eternal, you know, it is about this money, this surplus money that is generated by RBI in various money markets operation. So whatever money it used to get, or extra profit that it used to make, it were, or surpluses, right? Profit is not the right word, but surpluses that RBI used to have. It used to give some to Government of India, and it used to keep some amount of money with itself, so that it can use it for contingency or during emergencies. But now government is asking, or government wants RBI to give everything, you know, to government, and this is something that RBI is a bit skeptical about. So these are the three main points behind this rife between Government of India and Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Patel was of the view that after decades of relying on public sector banking background profiles, the job should be opened to a wider global field of expertise. Now, the problem is, for a very long period of time, public sector banks, you know, their heads used to be IAS officers, those officers who have worked with government for a very long period of time. So they many a times we find this nexus as well between bureaucracy and government or political parties. So all those bureaucrats, you know, have done some sort of favors to political parties. Now, after their retirement, they are placed as a top person of this public sector banks, and we find this sort of nexus as well. I'm not saying that it's everywhere, but this thing was going on in our country, that you have bureaucracy on one side, you have political parties on one side, and then you have businesses, right, on one side. So this nexus between all three of them, when political parties, they appoint those bureaucrats in public sector banks, right, who will be, you can say, a sort of yes sayers, right, rather than naysayers. So if they are naysayers, if they are saying yes to every order that is coming from political parties or political leaders, then that will be beneficial for businesses, because businesses, they provide party funds and other things to political parties. So it was beneficial for all three of this you can say corners, but it was not beneficial for the economy. And this is one of the reason, it's not the only reason, but it is one of the reason why we see this sort of NPAs, this high number of NPAs. So Mr. Patel, Urjit Patel, is asking for to get rid of this this bureaucracy, or this appointments of bureaucrats as top bankers. What he's suggesting that we need best experts, we need best person for the job, and for that, if we have to scale a global market, then we should do it. So this is again a thing, and it's quite visible, because So it took some 12 months for Government of India to fill up this post of Deputy Governor of RBI. So this sort of issues are not healthy for economy. That's everything that we can learn from these two articles. Then we have this one, the Forgotten Million. It's about our soldiers, Indian soldiers. Pre-independence era time, right, when this World War One took place between 1914 to 18, right? Some million Indian soldiers took part in this World War One, as under this umbrella of British Raj. So Armistice Day is going to be celebrated on 11th November 2018 in France, and Venkaiah Naidu will inaugurate this Armistice Day. So it's basically, it's an indication that this incremental recognition is there at global level of Indian soldiers who took part in this World War One. In 2002, the first memorial that we find abroad is this Menin Gate that is in Ypres. This is how you pronounce this word, Ypres. Ypres is a place in Belgium. On your screen, this is Ypres, this Menin Gate of Ypres. And this was the first memorial. It was opened in 2002, and it's about a sort of, you can say, paying tribute to or saluting all those brave soldiers. 130,000 Indian soldiers took part in it, and out of that, 10,000 soldiers died in this war that took place in Ypres. On your screen, you have Theresa May. She is Prime Minister of UK, and you see here this thing, this small plastic flower. It's very common, you find in Britain, right? People wearing this flower on their clothes. It's called poppy. So Theresa May has said that she is going to wear a khadi poppy to pay this tribute to some 74,000 Indian soldiers, right, who died in this World War One, who were fighting for this British government. Out of this 74,000, 11 soldiers got a Victorian Cross as well. It's a medal for valor, for bravery, for courage. And in the early days of war, troops of Indian Army, backed by the political class, and they were enthusiastic. The country was enthusiastic, as well as British government was a bit enthusiastic that we are getting a help from Indian soldiers. But we also find in British Library back in 1970s, if we go through interviews, this thing came in hand of British Library in 1970s, collection of interviews which talk about inhumane and racial treatment, racism and other things, the way our soldiers were treated. So we have these dark chapters as well. It's not all good. We have some dark chapters, but at present, incrementally, around Europe, we find that there are many countries, they are appreciating the role of Indian soldiers. Now, WW1, that is World War One, also influenced this collective psyche of the government of independent India. We, after because of this Indian soldiers that we lost in World War One and World War Two, based on this thing and other outcomes, we decided that we are not going to be part of this third party. We will never be a third party that will take sides. If two countries are in a state of war with each other, then we will work for peace, but we will not send our troops and things like that. So this is something that we have maintained. And India is at present third largest contributor of military and police personnel to United Nations peacekeeping missions. So this is our contribution, and this is something that we have learned from this loss of lives from World War One and World War Two. So that's everything about it. Moving on to another item, it's about preserving the taboo. This is the second topic that I was talking about, right? A couple of days ago, we talked about this Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces INF Treaty of 1987, signed between Mikhail and Ronald. Mikhail is former president of USSR, and Ronald Reagan, president of USA. Together, they signed this 1987's this INF Treaty, and it's a bilateral treaty, and it was about controlling this nuclear weapons, between these two arch rivals, this USA and at that point of time it was USSR. It was time of Cold era, and Cold War era. We are talking about this Cold War era, and Europe was, it had a sign of relief after this treaty was signed. But this treaty has its own limitations. It's a bilateral treaty. At present, we have some 9 countries. They have nuclear capacity, so we cannot control all those 9 countries with this bilateral treaty. INF does not represent the reality of today's multipolar nuclear armed world, isn't it? It's about this Cold War era where USSR and this USA, they used to have this big pile of nuclear weapons. At present, we know that China is a big country now, big in terms of nuclear weapons. It is carrying huge amount of nuclear weapons, and so what we need basically is we need a treaty that is covering all these 9 countries. We cannot have treaties just between these 2 countries and between them and between these 2 countries. This is not going to work. We need a proper treaty, a proper umbrella that can provide cover, as well as a boundary that can limit all these countries who are nuclear powers. In 2014, USA's President Barack Obama was not happy about INF Treaty. He said that Russia has been violating this INF Treaty many a times. Russia was alleging that USA has been violating this treaty. But the main point here, the most interesting point here is this thing, that the most important achievement of nuclear arms control is that a taboo against the use of nuclear weapons has been held since 1945. So we have this fear, right? Every country is having this fear, this skepticism about nuclear weapons, and this is something that is, it's a good thing. This fear of nuclear weapon is a good thing, and we need to utilize this fear, and we have to make sure that we are bringing all these stakeholders on table so that we can have a proper treaty and we can control this arms race that is, again, we can see this boost in this arms race between various different countries. Now, the most worrisome thing that we find is developments, this line between nuclear and conventional weapon is vanishing, and this is a matter of concern. What's in a name? This one is about Allahabad. Now it was, officially known as Prayagraj, and this sort of change of name, if this sort of change of name is taking place, keeping in mind religious or religion, or delighting some right community, right, in the sense, far right communities or people, then this is something that we are playing with the wrong thing, because the basic structure of our constitution is, basic pillar is secularism, and we cannot play around with secularism. This is something at very core of our country, our constitution. We have so many good examples, like Ajmer is not an Islamic name, but Ajmer is famous for Khwaja Moinuddin Chisti's Dargah, right? We have other places like Ahmedabad. There are other, names. They are Islamic names and they haven't been changed. So if any particular government is trying to change names of any town or city based on religion, may it be a Hindu government or not Hindu government, a Hindu political party. There is no Hindu government or Muslim government. It's political parties, right? They support various different communities. So anyways, we are not going into all those things. The bottom line here is that we should not, right? If we are doing it out of demand of people, right? If it's a logical demand, if it's a genuine demand, then yes. But if it is based on this communalism or creating this divide between 2 communities, then that's something that we should refrain ourselves from. No respite from poverty for Muslims. If you go through these articles, you will find so many figures, right? So I haven't took all those figures on our table, but I have got some important figures for you guys. When I say figures, I'm talking about facts and numbers. So as per National Sample Survey Office NSSO Labor Force Survey, right, what we learned from this NSSO survey of 68th round that took place on education levels and job market indicators, we realized that Muslims, Muslim community and their kids or youngsters, they haven't got this benefit of economic conditions. Economic condition of Muslims is still that bad. It's not that good compared to, if we look at our rate of growth of our country or our economy, then it's quite rapid, but rate of growth and development of Muslim community is not that good in our country. So if we go through figures of education, we find that out of 1,000 male, only 15 are postgraduates. Out of 1,000 male again, only 71 are graduates. So if we compare this with Sikhs, Hindus, Christians, then we find that Muslims are not in a good position. So what can we do to destroy this vicious cycle? How we can turn this vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle? For that, the government has to take some important steps. Basic thing is providing quality education, starting from schooling level to higher education level. The whole, all across the board, quality should be there as far as education is concerned. And once we provide education and health to our kids and youngsters, we are creating human capital. And the return that we get from human capital, we cannot get it from any other investment, the things that we get from human capital. So we need to build this human capital, and education is a very basic thing. With education, we can top up or add skilling, which is very important. We can you can change a little bit of curriculum as well, make it a bit more advanced, make it a bit more brief. Recently, Vice President said that 50% time of a kid in a school should be in classroom, and the rest 50% should be in the playground, because there are so many things that we learn from playground as well. So if we want to change the situation of Muslims in our country, then we have to provide them with quality education as well as health facilities. Latest news items: Rajapaksa is not Prime Minister at present. Speaker has said that there are so many MPs, they are protesting against this thing. So until and unless we don't have a clear floor test, Speaker is not going to declare Rajapaksa as a new Prime Minister. India has got a sort of temporary relief from USA. So we are one of the 8 countries. We have China, India, Greece, Italy, Taiwan, Japan, Turkey and South Korea. All these countries have got a temporary waiver. They can buy items from Tehran or Iran. And Iran will proudly bypass sanctions, has been said by President of Iran. He has said that this bullying power is trying to bully us, but we are not going to bow down. And India declares nuclear triad operational. We have this INS Arihan, so we conducted this test of a missile, and this places us into this elite group. Very few countries have this triad, nuclear triad, where you can launch nuclear missiles from air, from land, and from sea. Air quality plunges in Delhi again. Center is planning to add more seaplanes in this Udan 3, that is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik or regional connectivity scheme. Tibetan monks meet creates a flutter. Mr. Doval is expected to head to China, and he's going to have a chat with special representatives on this border issue. He's also going to meet foreign minister. So this meeting of Mr. Doval with the Tibet study group has created a bit of uproar. Ozone layer is recovering, has been said by United Nations report. Montreal Protocol is something that is looking after ozone layer, and in 10 years, what we are seeing is a repair rate of 1 to 3%, which is at present not bad, better than nothing. So that's what this article is all about. Here are your vocabulary: behove, quarantine, catalyzing, dismantle, hegemony, and inadvertent. Now, can you give me the reason why this New Caledonia is in news, in international news? What is the main reason behind this Caledonia appearing in international news? And that's everything in today's discussion. You can download the PDF of today's lecture from my FB page and Twitter handle. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Do share this lecture with other students. Jai Hind.